Hello, friends. Pet owners should watch their pets carefully. Their behavior can be a harbinger of unexpected events. They are incapable of simply telling you something important, but they can show you. It so happened that at 29, George Miller lived alone in a big city, far away from his family. He would sometimes get unbearably sad and decided to do something about it. He loved dogs and believed that they are true and loyal friends to people. That's why he decided to get a dog. He adopted Crosby from a shelter, and he became a kind and wonderful friend to George. The dog had a great personality and was very social. George and Crosby often went to the park where Crosby loved to play with other animals. Sometimes he would be so into playing that he wouldn't want to return home. He also made friends with the neighbor's cat and dog. For 8 years, they would get into all kinds of mischief. But it all ended abruptly. In the span of a few days, both of Crosby's friends passed away. Their owners were grieving, and so was Crosby. He kept looking for his friends but was unsuccessful. Then, something strange happened. George came home and called Crosby, but nothing happened. He called louder, but the results were the same. He became worried that maybe Crosby was beginning to go deaf, but as soon as he entered the living room, Crosby turned around to look at him. However, he immediately turned back around. George noticed that Crosby was fixated on a little stain on the wall. Other than that, he didn't notice anything strange and went to sleep. Crosby was behaving calmly. At night, George became very thirsty. He got up to get a glass of water from the kitchen. When he walked past the living room, he got chills when he saw that Crosby was still fixated on the stain. His behavior made George wonder whether it was the same dog that he had adopted. He felt that a gray cloud hung over Crosby. George was puzzled by the dog's behavior and decided to figure it out. He bought a camera that would work equally well in daylight and darkness. He installed it at his house and went to work. He watched the recording the following morning instead of that evening. He noticed one unexpected thing. When George wasn't home, Crosby didn't sit and watch the wall, but as soon as George entered, Crosby immediately ran to the wall. It looked like he was trying to tell something to his clueless owner. George decided to study the stain more carefully to try and figure out the situation. Crosby was somewhere in the house, but as soon as his owner entered the living room, he immediately ran up to him. When George reached out to the wall, Crosby began to bark happily. George had no idea what was going on. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from the wall, and then another one. George became frozen with fear. He saw that a piece of wood panel was peeling off, so he broke it off further. When it fell to the ground, George saw a hole in the drywall. George decided that he would get to the truth and put his arm inside. Holding his breath, he carefully felt around with his hand. At one point, he thought he was holding something soft, but it was just a piece of insulation. The noises seemed to be getting louder. Or was he starting to imagine things? No, he wasn't. His fingers finally felt something warm and soft. At that point, Crosby let out a piercing howl as if asking, "How much longer?" George grabbed onto that soft thing and pulled it out. He was surprised to discover that he pulled out a tiny kitten from the hole between the loose panels, between his living room and the bathroom. It was crazy how much the kitten looked like Crosby's late friend, an exact tiny replica. Where he came from and how he ended up in the wall was a total mystery. Maybe Crosby brought him from somewhere and tried to hide him. George carefully dusted off the kitten. He wondered what to do. Luckily, the kitten could eat by himself, and George was able to feed him. Crosby was extremely happy and followed around his owner and kitten. George asked his neighbors and even put up flyers, hoping that the kitten's owners would be found. But all of his efforts were unsuccessful. George brought him to the vet, hoping that the kitten had a chip. The kitten turned out to be healthy, but without a chip. That's when George made a Facebook post, but it too generated no results. George realized that he would have to decide the kitten's fate. He noticed that Crosby was becoming happier and more playful. But at the same time, George did not plan on adopting a kitten, so he took him to the shelter. The shelter was willing to take him, but said it would be a big stress for the little one. The shelter already had over 300 animals waiting for their forever families. George could not imagine leaving the kitten there, so he brought him home and called him Little Ray Ray. It was a victory. Crosby was no longer lonely, and the kitten got a loving family. The more George watched Crosby with Little Ray Ray, the more convinced he was that keeping the kitten was the right decision. Crosby let the kitten knead on him and lie down in his warm fur. Crosby was even patient with the kitten when he used his fur as a scratching post. It is very encouraging to know that there are kind people like George, but each one of us can help. Animal shelters around the world are in need of assistance. Remember, if you can't adopt, you can donate. If you can't donate, you can raise awareness about such organizations and about the incredible animals who are waiting for their forever homes. George came to an important conclusion. You have to carefully watch the behavior of your dog in order not to miss something important that he or she is trying to tell you. Friends, that's all for today. Share this story with your friends and family, comment and give us a like. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.